Nicholas Bornois of Capital Link. On behalf of the Capital Link team, I'd like to thank you all for being with us today. I think we have a very interesting, productive, and day full of tremendous insight. So thank you to everyone for being with us. Special thanks to DNB, who is our partner in this event, and they have shared with us the heavy lifting. So thank you also to the DNB team for doing an amazing job regarding all the investor meetings we set up and the overall organization. I will have Jim Scirenza take over. I'd like to thank also the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, all the sponsors of the conference, and of course, above all the speakers and you for being part of the event. And Jim, you take over, and you introduce our first speaker. Regrettably, Jeffrey Pyatt could not be with us today. They just informed us that if you are part of the State Department these days, lots of things happening around the world, so he was called away on a mission. But we do have a great replacement for him, and I will let Jim take over.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming. And Eric's background is probably more interesting than any background I've seen as it relates to this audience, because he's worked in some amazing places. So he's currently with the Energy Resources Department. He's the director of the Middle East and Asian Energy Diplomacy. Prior to that, he was economic counselor in Athens for 3 years. Served in Mexico City, served for 2 years in Moscow up until 2018, tours of duty in Ukraine, Peru, and so if you want to talk about shipping and energy, Eric has worked in some phenomenal places that I'm sure he'll give us some interesting insights. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's an honor for me to be here at this forum, which I'm familiar with from my time in Greece. Ambassador Pyatt obviously speaks very highly of this group. I know he wishes he could be here, but he does send his best regards. It's sort of end of administration time, and he's being pulled in a lot of directions. As noted, I had the pleasure of working for Ambassador Pyatt in Greece, where I personally engaged heavily in a variety of maritime issues, given Greece's leading role in the shipping industry. I'm working for him again in Washington, where, as was mentioned, I lead the Energy Bureau's Office of Energy Diplomacy. So, with Ambassador Pyatt at the helm and myself, I think we feel pretty familiar with the challenges the shipping industry faces. We likewise very much understand that only through working with the private sector can we find durable, sustainable solutions. Our Bureau essentially helps policymakers meet the challenge of global energy markets. Broadly, our focus is to leverage American energy abundance and advance the energy transition to advance our national security. To work with allies and partners, such as in this group, in a global energy system that's undergoing a rapid transformation. We're helping to manage the risk factors of Russia's weaponization of energy resources and the PRC's market dominance in some key technologies that are inputs to the energy transition, including battery materials, electrolyzers, and a near monopoly on solar wafers. Specifically, our Bureau leads a number of government-to-government energy dialogues across the world, and the questions are largely the same. How can I get more American investment? How can I get more American technology? How can we have more American finance? And I think this reflects the continued leadership of American firms across the energy sector, but also the understanding that the United States has a unique set of attributes in terms of the technological focus of our industry, a unique capacity to mobilize capital against technological opportunity, and also a very energy-intensive economy, which has gotten very good at finding efficiencies, but also pushing out the next generation. As we tackle the existential threat of climate change and build up our collective energy security by deploying clean energy sources, one massive challenge that we'll have to work through is decarbonization of hard-to-abate sectors, and shipping is obviously at the top of that list. As we often discuss, and I kind of got tired of saying this in Greece, but if the shipping industry were a country, it would have a similar carbon footprint to Germany or Japan. So needless to say, it's essential to work together to decarbonize the industry. But also I want to note that the maritime sector plays a key role in ensuring global energy security. LNG carriers move U.S. LNG to consumers all over the world, including Europe, where U.S. LNG helped replace gas supply following Russia's unilateral cutoffs and is now supporting EU goals to eliminate Russian fossil fuels. Shipping also plays a key role in our efforts towards global energy transition. Shippers are not just buyers of new fuel, they're the purveyor and transporter of those fuels to the rest of the world. New zero and near zero emission shipping and the adoption of new fuels such as clean ammonia and methanol can help transport new energy resources, help us decarbonize other hard-to-abate sectors, and provide the support needed to bring clean technologies like offshore wind online. Of course, we recognize that commitments on offtake at a price premium are critical to faster adoption. An investment in bringing new fuels to market is dependent on the business case. And there we want to work with the off-taker community to see how public-private partnerships might best support off-take agreements. New technology and innovation are only part of the solution. We need the support and collaboration of the entire industry, international community, including companies, flag registries, and entities represented in this room today. First mover actions are critical, which is why conversations like the one taking place at your forum today are so vitally important. I'm pleased to tell you that we're coming towards the end of 2024 with the wind at our sails. Pardon the bad pun. The International Maritime Organization recently adopted a revised strategy on the reduction of GHG emissions from ships, which for the first time sets a goal of near zero for the sector by or close to 2050, including major reductions as soon as 2030. We're working on this challenge through other platforms as well. For example, the United States and Norway co-chair the Green Shipping Challenge. This initiative is designed to encourage concrete actions and new commitments from countries, ports, companies, and other actors in the shipping value chain to help put the shipping sector on the pathway this decade to align with Paris Agreement goals. Over the past 2 years, we've hosted high-level events at COP27 in Egypt and COP28 in Dubai, featuring over 60 major commitments of new action, including new green shipping corridors, new zero-emission ships, and new policies across the globe. We look forward to continuing this momentum at COP29 in Baku. Working with our international partners is how we can build out supply chains of the new fuels and technologies that will make the green shipping revolution possible. We want to work with you, and I want to emphasize this, our industry partners, to reduce emissions and facilitate the energy transition across the shipping industry. I'll stop there and just say that the future of shipping is promising, and with the support of organizations like yours, a cleaner shipping industry is within reach. And one other thing, too, I'd like to say about Ambassador Assistant Secretaries Pyatt and leadership in this. As we face global economic and political uncertainty, shipping remains vital. Open and transparent relationships with the shipping industry and key stakeholders is the ambassador's priority and commitment to you all, the stakeholders. You're the ones that make the world run. So with that, I wish you a great conference and on to lunch. Thank you.
So we are coming now to our second keynote speaker. Thank you again for joining the lunch, and sorry for barging in. We are absolutely, frankly, privileged to have with us Dr. Ricardo Vasquez Morales, who is the administrator of the Panama Canal. I have to confess I'm absolutely humbled that he accepted the invitation to be with us today. The Panama Canal is such a vital link in the global supply chain. So when we talk about shipping, I think the Panama Canal is one of the most important links in that chain. When I met him this morning, I had the chance to say that I was personally very impressed by the fact that he combines tremendous expertise in three areas: the private sector, government, and academia, which I find quite unique. So I will simply say a few things about him, that he's a Panamanian economist with an extensive and successful professional career of 50 years. I couldn't say that it's that long, by the way. Of 50 years in the government sector and in private companies in financial, economic, and administrative management, and as I mentioned, in academia also. Within the public administration, he has held prominent positions such as Minister of Finance and Treasury, Minister of Planning and Economic Policy, as well as of Economy and Finance in 2004. He was the first non-U.S. Chief Financial Officer for the Panama Canal and later Deputy Administrator and President of the Board of Directors. Now, in the private sector, his experience includes senior positions with names that everybody recognizes at the Chase Manhattan Bank, Rio Tinto Zinc, General Electric, and Sigma Management Advisors. He has been a professor of economics and finance in Panama and abroad. His professional experience is complemented as a university professor of economics at Florida State University at its headquarters in Panama. And Dr. Vasquez, if you allow me to ask you, in your speech, can you please tell us how you find the time to do all these things? So it is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome him to the podium and thank him for being with us today.
Wow, that's raising the bar. Huh? Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. Sometimes it's very challenging to get some time off from the Panama Canal. We have this operation that runs 24/7, and sometimes it gets very challenging and complicated. And I was mentioning, and we heard this morning, the challenges the maritime industry has faced over the last 5, 6 years, 20 years. So the Panama Canal transferred to Panama's management about 25 years ago. And we changed the business model from what it was essentially a public service into a public service with profits. And that was because a constitutional title is an entity that operates by itself in government, in a state, but it's not part of government. We are part of the state, but we are not part of government. So there is a Chinese wall given by the constitutional title that was created for the Panama Canal, its operation, and everything is regulated by the board of directors and inside the Panama Canal. So we have a lot of autonomy, and we are a relatively small operation in Panama, to surprise a few here. We represent only about 5% of Panama's GDP. But the fact is that the activities around the Panama Canal represent about 50% of Panama's GDP. And that is what makes a difference, from transshipment to free zones and a lot of other activities. But let me share with you what has been the history of the Panama Canal over the last, say, 5 years. I've been 5 years in this position as CEO of the Panama Canal. And first and foremost, the Panama Canal operates on fresh water, which comes to a surprise to a lot of people. We depend on rain and the amount of water we can store in the lakes that operate the Panama Canal. We share that water with about 50% of Panama's population, because the water that we store at Gatun and Alajuela Lake provide the water that is used for consumption, municipal and industrial use as well. Just to give you an idea how much water we use just at the Panama Canal operation, we operate the Panama Canal with an amount of water which is equivalent to 2.5 times the amount of water the city of the size of New York uses. So in a regular year, we can use probably, we can go all the way up to about 6 million cubic meters per day, fresh water. So it's a huge number. So water to us is critical, and we have had our moments. So what has happened in the 5 years I've been the CEO of the Panama Canal? I landed to the position with a drought, 2019, and then we handled that drought because COVID came, and then COVID reduced the number of transits, so we could handle the volume of water we had at that drought. Then after COVID, then we have more water, so we replenish our lakes, and then last year we had the most severe drought since the Panamanian administration of the Panama Canal. Water availability was reduced by 30%. So what we do for seasonality is essentially to change draft. So in the dry season, we reduce draft, and then when the lakes are replenished, when the rainy season starts in April, that goes from April to about December, then we replenish the lake, we provide more draft, but we have never limited transit through the Panama Canal, ever. And I will tell a little bit of the story. Let's see. Comes 2019, we transited about 12,000 vessels. So we came back and we peaked about 13,000 vessels in 2022. The Panama Canal has performed a business model that is different, not just transiting vessels, but trying to provide a better service to our customers. So this year, we had severe restrictions. So comes December of last year, and then we have to make a major decision given the water levels we had. And then we changed our model from first in, first out to a model that was based on 100% booking. So you want to come, you have to book, you have to reserve a slot, and of course, at a reasonable fee. And you know, that's what happens when an economist takes over an engineering operation. At a reasonable fee, but that provided certainty in times of volatility. And given the water was unpredictable, then we have to assure that every vessel that called the Panama Canal could transit. There was a point in August, September of last year that we had 163 vessels waiting in the queue. Nowadays, we had one day where we have no waiting at the queue. So it was just on-time delivery and service provided. Revenue-wise, you can see that we generated our revenues from tonnage. So we are about 423 Panama Canal tons. And those are estimated numbers from, we closed our books on September 30th. So we came down to 429 million tons because we didn't have the capacity to move the number of vessels we usually move. Normal capacity is 36 transit per day, 10 transits at the Neo-Panamax locks, and the difference is essentially in the old Panamax locks. That is a centennial lock that has been built and operated since 1914. But we had changed the whole rationale of pricing the Panama Canal, and we have introduced new products and new prices, and we have generated value. And we have associated that value to what is the value to the vessels that we serve, and the cargo values, and the transferability that these prices can have with the final end customer. We have spoken, and we had a magnificent dialogue. We have improved our relationship with our customers, understanding customers' shippers. But we had gone beyond, and we had conversations with cargo owners as well to better understand how to better serve shippers and the end user as well. So we changed the whole rationale, and in 2019, the Panama Canal earned about net income, $1.5 billion in net income. Last year, we increased our total revenues short of $5 billion. And we generated, estimated and preliminary figures unaudited, about $3.5 billion in net income, of which we hold a portion of that as retained earnings to finance our capital expansion program, which we estimate for the rest of this century is going to be about $8 to $10 billion, including a water reservoir in order to make sure that we have more capacity to handle the amount of rain that falls, and we can make better use of that if we have additional storage capacity near the Panama Canal. So water to us is critical, and it's the centerpiece of everything that we do at the Panama Canal, and it's the centerpiece of our capital investment program. Associated with water, in the longer run, about 2 years ago, we acquired a significant tract of land on the west bank of the Panama Canal. And what we are doing is facing the competition that is posed by Mexico about the train in Tehuantepec, and some initiatives in Nicaragua and other initiatives in Colombia, that we're gonna stand firm and assure that we have an alternative way, in the absence of water, that we can move cargoes and products. So we are shifting not only the business model on just on time, but we are shifting our attention not only from the shipping company into the cargo volumes. And we will try to handle some volumes either by train, either by road, or transshipment containers under Panama Canal operation. So we increased our revenue base by $1.8 billion over the last 5 years. We have increased, as I mentioned, our profits, and most of that was accomplished without infrastructure capacity, additional infrastructure capacity. It was essentially data management, brain power, analytics, and a lot of creativity by the Panama Canal team, some of which are with me today. If we can compare the Panama Canal to a listed company in the New York Stock Exchange, compared to S&P 500, our return on equity is 21% over the last 5 years. Return on total assets is 20%. So we are outperforming the top companies listed here in the New York stock market. So what else can I say? Now, we should go public. There are some, but please erase that from the tape because that will be treason in Panama. So these are the numbers. So last year, we have increased our contribution margin from about 45% of total income to 63% of total income. Once again, increasing value, capturing value, and fully understanding the business of our customers and our customers' customers. Now, how important has been the experience of a drought? We have improved operations so significantly that we are trying to, yes, we had less transits, we had less volume, but still we changed from first in, first out into just in time. By doing just in time, when we compare fiscal 2023 and fiscal 2024, we have reduced waiting times at the Panama Canal and the entries by 50% compared to last year. We have reduced transit time by about 10%. We have increased 8%, just about. And then the canal water time, which is the time when the vessel is ready to transit till it leaves the last buoy at the other entrance of the Panama Canal, we have reduced that to 27 hours. Quite significant. So in times of volatility, we introduce reliability. And the reliability was introduced by booking every single slot at the Panama Canal. So there's more to come. How important is the Panama Canal to international trade? Last year, fiscal, we transited about $500 billion of merchandise value through the Panama Canal. When we were at the peak of the drought, our major concern was what would happen at Suez, because those are two shock points in maritime industry. So, and it happened. You know, it is a lot worse than we thought it could be, but it reflects on how integrated the world is nowadays, that one event at a drought in Panama could have major impact internationally. One of our preferred customers, which are the energy products, LNG, LPG, one vessel in ballast, just to get a slot to transit in the middle of a drought, had to pay $4 million for a slot. It was an outlier, but it reflected the value of transiting and the reliability that is needed in order to move products around the world. And a significant portion of that is accomplished by many of you sitting in this luncheon, and thanks for the invitation once again. One of the major elements that we have introduced is talking to our customer, providing information. in the middle of the drought, in a website, you have the queue, waiting times, which vessel, at what time, what is the estimated time of transit. That information was critical for shippers to allocate vessels and deploy them either through the Panama Canal or through alternative routes. Our relationship today is much better, and there are challenges, and we introduced a new product in August. So we decided, and the tradition at the Panama Canal, and I will do this in closing and other statement, is to book on a day-to-day basis. So if I have 7 slots at the Neo-Panamax slots, I only have 7 options. So probabilities, again, I told the team, what happens if you book weekly? So 7 times 7 will be 49 slots, so you have more latitude and degrees of freedom to allocate slots. So there was a lot of resistance at the time, and we were trying to handle the drought, so there was another alternative. So we kept talking to our customers. So in August, we started a new product. So you can book for a full year, and that's called LOTSA. It's long-term transit allocation system. And then the market responded. So we have all but 6 of those packages out that we sold over the last 6 weeks, and essentially has addressed the reliability required to segments such as LPG, LNG, and container traffic. The other thing that we are doing is essentially by managing water and water capacity, especially on containers, we are pushing the market to come through the Panama Canal with the largest possible vessel. So this year we have transited 7 transits of 17,000 TEU vessels so far. And we see a movement that the concentration on transit and vessel size on containers is moving to larger vessels. In closing, I have to say, the Panama Canal has the resources, we have the autonomy, we have a vision. We believe that we are very important, sure, for the Panamanian economy. There's a lot of activity that surrounds the Panama Canal. But 8,500 Panamanians work at the canal. And the contribution we do to the world is quite significant. For a small country like Panama, that is major, and is the essence of what Panama has done for 500 years, to be a transshipment center of international trade. And because that international responsibility, we are committing to provide the reservoirs that are needed to manage fresh water, to put all the technology that is required to have an internet blanket over the navigational channel, so we make it safer, secure to transit the Panama Canal on real time in order to accommodate vessels on real time and on time. We are going to add additional technology to better improve and with the concerns about decarbonization. We are shifting into hybrid tugboats, and most of the equipments are geared to meet the target that by 2050, the Panama Canal will be carbon neutral. Thank you very much for your attention, and let's enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Great. At no extra charge, I have to say. No special pricing. You don't have to book a slot. No. There are several things the first and the easy way out to that is, you add an additional reservoir to capture more water. The problem of that is that you only have the water that nature gives you. So we still and will remain to be water dependent. We are toying with an alternative. I was discussing over on the table before addressing the audience on pumped storage and the possibility of moving water that is used, recycled back into the lake. We had a consideration for pumped storage, but the problem is that Panama's geology is very irregular. So it's very difficult to put an additional dam next to the Panama Canal, so we have to put a reservoir some 10 to 15 kilometers away from the navigational channel. So that's the other one. The reason we bought land is because, yes, everyone is saying, you know, we can do transshipment. Transshipment is not the most efficient way of doing things. But transits at the Panama Canal, 72% of the container vessels that transit the Panama Canal do transshipment. So there is an opportunity to do transshipment and redistribution in the area. And that's one of the reasons that we acquired the land, and we are in the early stages of trying to put a road from the Pacific to the Atlantic, which is only 82 kilometers. So that will be an alternative. But we have to generate some degrees of freedom. We had discussions as far as crude is concerned. Panama has a pipeline. It's not owned by the Panama Canal. There have been suggestions for the Panama Canal to manage that operation and complement the pipeline with the canal, so you can have West Texas sweet crude through the pipeline that was built for Alaskan crude. So you can use that pipeline moving crude from Gulf to Asia, and then have some of the crude that comes from Suriname and Guyana coming through the Panama Canal in Aframax. So those are alternatives of, you know, moving away from the Panama Canal as such, moving away from transiting vessels, talking to end customers, looking at different products, and see if we can enhance Panama as a route. The centerpiece will remain the Panama Canal, but expand that possibility all over and across the country, which is extremely narrow. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much, Dr. Vasquez. Thank you, Eric, for being with us today. Thank you to both our speakers. Thank you to DNB, and thank you to the Capital Link team, the DNB team, and to all of you. And you can enjoy the rest of the lunch. And we have a very, very good program in the afternoon. Looking at the questions that I see the moderators have prepared, I think we're going to have a very fiery exchange, spirited. So I look forward to seeing you downstairs. Thank you.